Oh. Well, also, I'm gonna be against Bill Burr on this. Not because I think that he's wrong, but only because that is like the industry standard on the acting side of things. Is that you get a 1 minute monologue and they will like fucking call time and like shove you out of the audition room if you go over. Which is so dumb. And you're right, it doesn't like give an actual like accurate portrayal of how well you can act or do comedy, but I'm just like, ugh. Yeah. Hmm. But also with a minute, it sounds like best case scenario, you get 6 laughs. Jesus. Out of 2 shows. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely like a high visibility like platform too. Um, but more about you. So we do start and end every interview with the same questions for every guest. But how would you describe your sense of humor to someone who's never seen you perform? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yay! That makes me happy. Um, okay, yeah, deprecating. Oh. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I remember that set. That's good. Yeah. Shout out to Cider. Oh god, my hand's so cramped. God. But like no, that's also like a good point to make though, and something that I have had concerns about personally is that like I haven't done an open mic yet, like in person, and a lot of the stuff that I was doing was like has only seen Zoom. So it's comforting that like at least it sounds like a lot of the material that you came up with through the Zoom mics. Correct me if I'm wrong, but also translates well on the stage. Go for it, yeah. Oh shit. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's awesome because that is like a level of like comfort that I feel like people don't remember as much about like doing the live shows is that like also just being able to like having performed a few times in the physical space is so helpful though. um Yeah, I refuse to do that ever. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No. No, but that's a good point though, because then it's also like the other side of that coin is people like you and me, I feel, is like it doesn't matter how good we do, we're gonna say that like we did poorly, and like on the one hand that's helpful to like be looking at your own set and like to be critical of yourself, hopefully from a like objective standpoint, but also that there's also the other side of it where there's people who like think that they do a good job no matter what. And like if you're specifically doing something where you're like, I am like doing this set for 10 minutes without any of my previously written material, if it's like you're setting yourself a specific challenge, I guess you could see that, but also like it's hurting watching you. It's like, yeah. I also appreciated the like, I'm so casual, my arm's just gonna drape over this chair. We're setting the scene. And it sounds like it's a saying. I'm sorry, what was it again? I was buttering my toast. But your point was, uh, sorry, I'm trying to confirm. But like, what were you saying again? As far as like me just buttering some toast. Okay, sorry. Good. Nice. Like a Nakia trying to scroll through. Good. Let me do a callback to this guy who absolutely bombed horribly.
Is telling a joke, and he's talking about like something about buying a gun. Like at all. Well, I was trying to get footage to submit for festivals, and somebody was like, "Yeah, you should do that from a show that you're booked on, not an open mic in a bar."
Oof.
Easily one of the most like aggressive moments I've ever seen in doing stand-up. Hardest bomb I've ever seen. I was like, "Oh my god."
Oof, that's rough.
I've never once, other than that moment, seen a comic tell an audience member that they would shoot them in the face, and probably mean it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I can definitely see like people thinking that.
Yeah. I was like, no
actually
wonder
saying
why
it
people
as a
think
whole-
comics are unstable. I was like, holy shit.
I was doing this event where I was doing it was an April Fool's Day thing, and it was on like cryptid animals like Bigfoot or like
Ooh.
yeah. So
Hell
it was
yeah.
organized by a friend, and it was like we were doing presentations on fake cryptids. So I was like presenting my dumb little monster PowerPoint or whatever, and there's this drunk guy who is apparently like the brother of the guy that owned the bar or something, so no one could really tell him to shut up. But he had been like talking through every single person before me. So I made the audience have a moment of silence for the victims of my cryptid. And this guy is like talking really loud, and then the entire room just gets really quiet. And like he has one of those awkward moments where he's like screaming, and then all the noise around you stops. And he's just like, and didn't know what to do with himself. And
Legit.
yeah, in a way, it was like my little revenge on him. It's fun because I got
So
to yell at
funny.
him for not being quiet for the victims. And then
What was your cryptid, Roz?
I did it 2 years in a row. The first year I did it was on the Baltimore Fatberg.
Oh my god.
A cryptid that lurks in our sewers that plugs up the sewer. It's made out of like fat and stuff, but it's sentient. And then the year after, I did the Baltimore Trash Goblin, which is a cryptid that sneaks around your yard at night and leaves trash everywhere.
What's your favorite actual cryptid as opposed to like made up cryptid?
I mean, So our local one is the Goat Man of Aberdeen, which is cool, but I'm kind of a Mothman girl.
Fuck yeah, dude. Yes.
Okay, but like,
Mothman
Yeah.
is such a good movie, and it's.
we
Dude.
can't let Nick trick us into interviewing us, though. I know that he does his own podcasts and stuff, but I refuse to let you do that. We've already had Kevin Wong do that to us,
That's
and
true.
I refuse
Yeah.
to let it happen again.
Shout out to the introverts of the world. Kevin's
Woo!
like,
Introverts
I started a
Paradise,
place for
check it
introverts.
out.
He's like, let me ask you guys a question. How do you
Yeah,
guys feel
he,
about
He
baseball?
does that, and I fucking hate it because I am also a narcissist,
But I love
so will
Kevin.
absolutely fall into that trap.
Oh, that's so funny.
Also, sorry, audience, if I just figured out the audio. I had my mom, who I'm pretty sure is the only person texted me and was like, "Hey, your sound's not working," which is really helpful.
Thanks, Tom's
but
mom.
now it should be working, so
Tom's
that's good.
mom, hi,
Also,
hope you're doing well.
I'll like re-upload this with all the
Wait,
audio.
Sorry,
Yes.
Tom's mom, if I said the bad word.
Okay,
Well,
let's-
she couldn't hear you if you did, which
All
was
right.
the whole
Well,
thing.
you said it too, so now I'm like, all right, cool. Tom broke the ice.
No, it's fine. I will.
right. I didn't know if
totally
there's a
say the
language,
bad words. Like, also, by the way, you can totally curse on this podcast. Like,
All right,
Yeah.
cool. Because
fuck,
I have
bitch,
a foul mouth.
all that stuff. You
But
know,
yeah,
the
get me
worst
talking
of
about cryptids if you want to derail us.
Oh yeah, dude.
What? Either way. Either way.
The Jersey Devil.
We do want
Anyway,
to ask,
oh, that was-
just because we talked about your sense of humor a little bit, is there anything like you want to say, like, give us a like rundown of your background, anything that may have like influenced your comedy style
Oh,
from
that's
growing up
easy.
in Virginia? Or...
That's easy. No, so when I was a kid, I've talked about this on my own podcast, but when I was a kid, my parents are both like really big into comedy. Like my mom loves Sam Kinison, George Carlin, Gallagher is like one of her favorite comics. Robin Williams, like those are her like favorite comics. My dad was like on the other camp. So like my dad was like Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, you know, dudes like that, like Martin Lawrence, Chris Rock, like all that shit. So like growing up as a kid, we had like VHS tapes of all these comics, like some of the greatest comedians ever. Like I was a small child, I was probably like my stepson's age, and I was in the living room and I remember watching like Eddie Murphy at like 6 years old, not even, like on VHS. And I remember like as I got older, like when Adam Sandler started like putting out movies and stuff like that, and like Chris Farley and all those guys, like I always wanted to be like the funny guy. Like I always thought like I would see, like I had other friends that were watching like Mission Impossible movies, and I'm like, no, but let's talk about Austin Powers. Like that's what I wanted to do. I was like, that stuff is cool to me. Like I like being goofy and like all the dudes doing characters and all that stuff. Like that was always like larger than life to me. I always was like, I want to be I want to be a comedic actor or like a comedian of some sort somehow. And then I got tattoos and I was like, well, no one's going to cast me unless I'm cast as a tattooed guy. But yeah, no, so like I really kind of like grew up around like an environment that had stand-up readily available at my access. Like I was a kid and we had all like the Def Comedy Jam tapes and shit like that. So like I had tons of stuff available. And yeah, I mean, I was an only child growing up, and then my parents got divorced. So like I always had that like weird just enough trauma in my life that I was like, oh yeah, I got to figure out a way to like laugh through the pain of being the kid from a broken home. But
right,
like,
which is like, we need a good amount of trauma to be good
oh yeah,
stand-ups.
no, like they always, everyone, like all these other big comics I've heard talk about it, they're like, oh no, there's like a formula, you know, like this and this, broken home, whatever, alcoholic parents. You're like, yeah, no, I totally could see me being a comic.
I mean, it's either that or joining Papa Roach. So I feel like we'll
yeah,
pick the
I could
last.
have made it, dude. This is my last resort.
This is my last resort. Okay,
Thank you,
sorry.
guys.
But also,
Now we
so
owe
it
them
seems
money.
like
Thanks
with
a
all
lot,
these
Tom.
like different comedic influences, with that, do you feel like your personal comedy style is reflective of those people? Because I've found that like my favorite comedians do not necessarily do the type of comedy that I do, because that is like not my niche to do like edgy existentialist comedy or like
All right.
whatever I like.
I don't want to take over, but I do want to ask you both a question. So, favorite comic? Like, if you guys each had to pick your favorite comic, who would it be?
100% Nick Deez.
Don't say that. You're a liar. I'm not even my favorite comic. I'm my favorite local comic.
Right.
Oh, there you go. There you go. That's healthy.
I know. I'm a big
Yes.
fan of Maria Bamford, but
Dude,
that's me.
so when I was in Colorado, we went to Denver to visit my girlfriend's sister before COVID happened. So like the year before COVID happened, we went out there and we actually went to the Stanley Hotel, which is like where The Shining is based off of. And they brought us into the auditorium and they were like, yeah, this is our ballroom, whatever, auditorium, whatever. We've had, we've had plenty of different people perform here, musicians, whatever, comedians. Actually, Maria Bamford performed here. And I was like, I know who she is. All these other people were like, well, what's a Maria Bamford? And I was like, I know who she is.
They don't deserve her.
Yeah, honestly, it's also like a little bit of a like, yeah, she's like the indie comic that you only know if you're like really into comedy.
Yeah, well, she's like a really like big indie alt whatever, like
until she got like 2 Netflix specials.
But one of them is just from her living room in various other places, which is so
God.
cool. It's so funny.
I'm a big fan because I do comedy from my closet. So that is that's my tribute. What about you, Roz?
I mean, honestly, I coming from more of an improv background, I would say like The Kids in the Hall probably had the biggest influence overall on my comedy.
Okay.
Just that weird like surrealist kind of humor. But as far as stand-ups go, I'm actually a pretty huge fan of Russell Brand's stand-up, even though it hasn't aged super well. But there's just like he plays with language a lot, and there's like a very pseudo-intellectual bent to it, but it's also very juvenile that just like really does it for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the answer to your question, Mr. Interview Flipper. Okay, but tell us a little bit about your writing process for your comedy. Okay. It seems like that you had some benefit as far as like, being able to do the Zoom comedy and having that as like a place to try out new material. But as far as your normal writing process, is there anything specifically that you try and go through for working stuff out or anything like that?
So, real quick to go back to your previous question, as far as like comedic influences, I don't think any of my like real, like, I don't think a lot of my favorite comics have influenced my style as far as like how I go about things on stage. Because like Dave Chappelle's obviously like he's like one of my favorite comics. There's like Dave Chappelle, Mark Normand, like Joe List, Sam Morril, like those are a bunch of dudes that I'm like, man, those are some of my favorite comics. A lot of like the New York guys, but I don't really feel like my style is similar to theirs. The only comic that I know that I like genuinely enjoy that's like really high up there that I think I could that's like the only one that I think I could be close to would be like Tom Segura, but that's just because like how I write as far as like my inflection goes and how I do like my pauses and stuff like that and like how I deliver stuff. But that's the only person that I could really think like, oh yeah, that's the only person that I think, because one time before I started doing stand-up, this girl that I worked with was like, oh my God, you should check out Tom Segura. I think you would really love him because you remind me of him as far as like just your natural, like how you talk and tell stories. And that was before I ever started stand-up. And then I checked him out and she was completely wrong. I hate him. No, she was right. I very much so enjoy him. And I was like, damn, she's right. I actually really like this guy. But no, my writing process is weird. Like, I kind of do like the same thing that I feel like a lot of people do is like if I think of something, I immediately have to like write it in my phone or like write it down. It's at the point where like I have premises that are written in my phone that I haven't like really fleshed out. Like I have them fleshed out in my head as far as like how the wording should go or how I would like it to go. But like more often than not, I'll think of stuff in the shower. That's like the worst. Because if I think of one joke in the shower and then I think of anything coming off of that joke, I more often than not will forget the first joke and then remember the second one. And in the process of trying to remember the first one, I'll forget the second one. And then I get out of the shower and I don't have any
No
new
jokes.
And I'm like, well, you suck. You are garbage. Get back in there for another
Etch-a-sketch for
30.
the shower.
So
Yeah.
I went on Amazon and I bought a waterproof writing pad for the shower.
I was
So
about to suggest that.
Yeah.
because I did a mic and somebody told me that I should get one. And I was like, that's a real thing. It was, I forget where or who told me, but I was like, holy shit. And I looked it up and I Amazoned it and immediately bought one while I was on a mic. All right, well, now I've got no excuses and it's in my drawer. So I haven't used it yet, but
You can't
Oh.
even put it in the shower. It's a
I'm
waste
afraid that I don't believe anything that says waterproof. I sell phones for a living, so I'm like, I don't believe it.
It's not.
Yeah,
I got
that's
tested
true.
out. I spent like $7 on this notepad. I don't want to fuck it up.
Also, it sounds
Wait.
like for anybody listening, if a phone says it's waterproof, don't believe them.
100% don't believe it. Never.
But thanks for
believe it.
keeping me on track, because I did almost skip over your answer for who your comedic influence was. Yeah, so that's cool as far as like your writing process. I also feel like I've observed you doing a good amount of like crowd work in your comedy. So how is that as far as like, it seems like it's a lot easier to do crowd work live than it is via Zoom comedy, and also like just generally like doing crowd work as like a method for pretty much writing your set for people like me who don't do crowd work at all and don't like talking to people.
So this actually this goes back to the shows that I just did this weekend. So I told you guys that I did that early show Saturday and I felt really good about it and I was super pumped. And I was like, all right, cool. I don't ever come off stage being like, oh, I crushed. I crushed. That was one of those shows where I came off stage and was like, I don't feel like I'm pretending. I feel like a real comic and I feel like I did well. I was on such a high from that show that the second show that night, I was like, there's going to be less people here. I know for a fact there's going to be less people here. Second show had like 50 people there. And I was just like, you know what? I have my set written out. I have the jokes that I want to do, but I'm going to go up and I'm just going to have fun. Like as much fun as I had last show, I'm just going to have fun. Like I'm just going to go up and do whatever I feel like doing. So I did some jokes up top. I did a couple jokes. I started riffing. And then I just jumped into like maybe like 4 minutes straight worth of just crowd work. And I was doing just crowd work. Like I was doing some of the stepdad jokes. And then I looked at a guy up front. It was this younger black dude. He was probably like in his like, I'd say like late 30s. And he was sitting at the table with this white lady. And I asked him, like, I was like, do you have kids? And he was like, yeah, I've got kids. And I was like, see, this guy gets it. He knows what's up. And it got a laugh. And I was like, how many kids do you have? And he goes, 4. And I was like, why did you have to think about that? Like, I was like, are you not sure how many you have? Like you had to say, before that. I was like, I don't like your lack of confidence in that. Like you don't sound convinced. And I was like, immediately, so like that's getting laughs. And I'm like, this dude's just out here shooting reckless. He's like, I don't know how many kids I have. I could have 30. I don't know at all. I have no idea right now. And like that just led me to this, like, I just kept going from there, like saying something, it got a laugh. I'd say another thing, it would get a laugh. And I'm just kind of like, basically like just pulling the yarn at the sweater and trying to like pull it apart to like get to that big pop. And like, it got to the point where I'm asking him, I'm like, oh, you know, I said something. I'm like, I looked at the lady. I'm like, are any of them with her? And he goes, oh, no. Like super quick. Damn. And I was like, oh my God, dude. I'm like, I can't believe you said it that quick. I was like, she's just sitting over here like, yeah, you know, not with that attitude. Keep it up. And you're not going to have any kids with me. And like, I just kept going and it like,
I'm not sure how many kids I have, but they're definitely not with her.
I was like, do you guys even know each other? I was like, did you just grab a random white lady outside and you were like, come sit at this table with me? And she was just like, okay, you seem nice. But like I literally was just doing that for a couple minutes. And it's the thing with going, like I said, I literally just was like, I'm going out on a limb and I'm just gonna try something and see if it works. And that, like, to me, it was just like, at that point, it was the last show of the weekend. It was 10 o'clock on a Saturday. I was tired. I'd been working all weekend doing all these shows. And I also knew that I couldn't get fired at that point. You can't tell me not to come back after tonight because
It was my last show.
no more
anyway.
shows this weekend. So like in my
Yeah.
head, I was like, already got paid, already cashed the check. It's already hit my bank account. There was literally nothing to lose at that point. So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to go up and have fun. And literally, like, I just was just confident enough that I was like, I'm just going to play with this. And then, yeah, like I just did a bunch of crowd work and shit. And it felt really good knowing afterwards that I came off and was just like, yeah, I feel good about that. Like I had fun and I got some good pops from something that's not written. Cause it's like, it's one thing to flex your like writing muscle on stage where you're like, okay, this is how I write a joke. This is how I deliver a joke. Like I know when I write jokes, so this is going back to like how I write is I type everything out in my phone when I'm writing jokes. I know where a pause is because I will put a break. Like I will put a space, like I'll skip a line, write out whatever comes next, skip a line. And that is how I know to pause in between whatever I'm doing. And the difference between doing something like that is like, I know the structure. I know how this goes.
Mm-hmm.
I have it in my head, like say A, B, and C, pause, let it get a laugh, and then go to D, E, F, pause, and get a laugh. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Crowd work is different because it's just like you have to say whatever and then fill in the blanks to get to where the laugh is.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's definitely exercising a different muscle.
Oh,
but
it's a totally
also
different muscle.
comforting to hear you say that because for someone like me who does everything like in their little notepad, like I definitely feel like that's going to be a transition for me from Zoom comedy where I'm able to read everything off of a Word doc that I have pulled up in front of me to like needing to remember basically my set and also just like there are things in it like from a writing perspective that I like put in my notes that like help me in how I deliver it. So it's kind of having to remember all that shit too.
Well, so that's another thing is like the jokes that I did this weekend, I've done them so many times now,
Mhm.
and I've done the set, like how I used it. I've pretty much done all that so much in a certain order that like I had my set list. Like this is my set list from the first show that I did at that club for their soft open. I just like had it up here. But like I have my set list for the whole weekend that I wrote out. And even though I didn't really change much on the set, I still wrote it out. But I never once, like the entire weekend that I was there, I didn't look at my set while I was on stage at all. Like I just had it tucked under my phone so that I had the jokes written out so that like mentally in my head, I'm like, oh, I got my set written out in case I need it. But it's like, I had that mental repetition enough where it's like, I know how these jokes go. I know where they go. I know where I start. I start here on the joke about like losing 60 pounds. I let the audience, you know, clap and cheer. And then I immediately swing in with, nah, I'm lying. I lost 60 pounds because I left my stepson at the mall. And then I go into all that stuff. And then like I go from that to the McDonald's stuff. And then I know where I weave in and out. And like even on early show Saturday with adding in those two new jokes, I knew where those jokes would go into the mix of everything.
And that's the thing too is also like when at least again from what I've observed as far as like doing the different online stuff and like coming up with new material even if it's at a live open mic, it's kind of like a lot of times I won't know if a joke will land A, but B, like where it will fit into my regular set, and that's sometimes part of the like evaluation process that I use at open mics too. Is like, okay, did it get laughs, but also like, did it not get laughs just because of where I put it in the set too? Like maybe if I put it somewhere else, like if I do my gay stuff with all my other gay stuff,
That's what I do.
it'll land better, sort of thing.
Well,
But
so I'll tell you this, like one of the coolest things I've heard in a long time about doing stand up and like structuring out your set is I saw this video. It's Ralphie May, and he's like talking to people at the Comedy Store, and he's talking about how he structures out his set. So basically, the way he does it is he does it on, or well, did it because he's deceased now. R.I.P. to one of the best. Ralphie is amazing. But he would structure out his set, and he would do it on a point system, like it was like a basketball game or whatever. So like he would do it where like each joke is a point or whatever. If it's a new joke, you get like 5 points for doing a new joke. If it's a new tag, you give yourself a point for a new tag. Like if you're trying jokes in a different order or different way, he had a point system where he was basically like, this is how I rank myself, and the goal was to get like as close to 100 points as possible. Like every time the goal was to try and get as close to 100 points as possible. So it's like thinking about it like that is cool because you go, okay, well, I'm gonna try this set this way. All right, well now I'll flip it. I'll do this joke here and then this one here. I'll start with this stuff and end with this stuff. Or I'll, I got this joke. This joke's great. I thought of a tag for it. Boom, put it there. All right, cool. Like I have stuff that like in the process of writing all this new stuff, I go, oh, well, I have this random joke that I couldn't find a spot for. And now I think it fits here. So now I can try it and see if it works. So it's like, it's cool being able to like go back into, Santa's bag of toys and pull out like the jokes that you're like, oh shit, I had this and I couldn't figure out what to do with it. Now here's another joke that it makes sense. Here you go. Here's your toy.
Well, yeah, and yeah, that's a good point. It's also like sometimes you come up with jokes and it's like they don't have a home yet, but it's good to like still save them and not throw them out completely yet. And also I really relate to the whole like scoring system. I have a spreadsheet for my jokes where I rate them on a scale of 1 to 5, but I only ever end up scoring them from 3 to 5 because if it's like a joke that's not even making a 3, it's not going in my set anyway.
Okay. But see, that's the same, like that's a similar thing though. Like you find whatever system works for you. Like I don't do that. Like I don't do it in that sense, but I know like I will try a joke a certain number of times, and if the joke still isn't where I want it, I'll either try to change the joke or I will shelve the joke. Like I have jokes that I wrote like however long ago that I feel like, and this is very true, and I've talked to a lot of comics about this, but I feel like there's a lot of times where you'll think of a joke or you'll come up with a joke or a premise or something, and you go, this is going to be really good one day, but I'm not good enough to make this work yet.
Right now. Yeah.
Like I've had multiple jokes like that where I go, damn, this is a really good premise. I don't want to fuck it up, but I'm going to write it down so that I can come back to it one day. Like I've had this idea about sneezing and driving. Like I've had that idea since I started doing stand up, and I've only recently like over the last like week or so tried to like flesh it out as an actual bit.
Flesh out my sneeze. No, that's
terrifying.
a good point
I
though,
hate
is like sometimes I really appreciate the way that you phrase it, is like it's not necessarily like the joke's fault. It's just like
Exactly.
I am not yet at a point where I can give you little baby fetus joke the attention and love that you deserve. But I also, not to like cut off your thoughts or anything, but I do want to ask you, just because of the time, like I want to get into a little bit about Broken Boys podcast, what that's about, how you got into it, and like the startup and background behind that, because that's you're also a huge podcaster.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I started doing comedy build-ups and breakdowns. I haven't done that in a while. And that started out as a podcast with me just basically interviewing other comics and talking about like what got them into stand up and like the highs and lows of like doing comedy. And it was something that I you know, I have a lot of fun doing it. I just after I got COVID, I got really depressed and like I took a while off, and then I did a few episodes, and then I took a few like I've just been like really trying to figure out what I want to do in the world of like creating my own content. So like I haven't done as much with that here recently. But no, I've been super lucky with that one because I've had real comics on there. Like I've had Godfrey was on there,
Wow.
Josh Blue was on there. Like I've had people on there. Like I had Frank Castillo on there, who's in the Comedy Store documentary on Showtime. I've been really lucky to have like a bunch of like really good comics on there and people that I like respect. And I started doing that just because like I wanted to be able to put something out that like somebody starting out in my position could find it and find something to like talk about. Like Tom, you were talking about crowd work and stuff like that. One of the best people I talked to is like I did an episode with Winston on crowd work. Winston Hodges, for anybody listening, is like he's one of my best friends as far as like comedy goes. He was one of the first people I met, and I love, dude. I've got nothing but love for that dude, for real. He's a great guy. He's one of the hardest working.
Grieving Productively on YouTube.
Yes, he's got a podcast. He's got a couple podcasts, but Grieving Productively, yeah, check it out. But no, he's one of those first people that I met, and I was like blown away by his work ethic. And that dude like really set the bar for me as far as like trying to work. So like he and I did an episode on crowd work just because like he and I talked about it, and he was like, yeah, crowd work is something that like you have to make yourself do. And like, so going back to what you said is like, he said that he would do shows where he would tell people like, look, I'm going to do 30 minutes, but it's just going to be crowd work. And that's all it's going to be. And unless you're okay with that, then
you should get out.
Yeah. Like if you're not okay with that, then I'm not going to do the show, or don't book me for the show. Like he had a room that he ran where he would just do crowd work. But yeah, so like I started doing that, and like it just became like a positive avenue where I could talk to other comics about, you know, doing stuff in comedy and like have people's experiences. And, you know, I had Steve Rogers, who's Brian Regan's opener. I had him on, and like it was a lot of fun. But yeah, Broken Boys, that's like me and my buddy Addison, who's like another comic from here. That dude legit is like that's like my best friend. I haven't seen him much lately because he's got a girlfriend now.
Yeah,
so,
what's happening, Addison?
I know
never again. He's gone.
We've got some episodes to catch up on. So like two of my podcasts that I do most regularly are on a bit of a hiatus right now until we can start putting more content out. But no, I started doing that when pandemic started. Like he and I bought a really expensive Zoom recorder and headphones and microphones. Like right now in front of me, I have 4 SM58 microphones set up, like all on stands, and I have my recorder on the table and everything. Like I basically set up a legit like podcast studio in my room up here. And I did it at the worst time where no one was like, I don't want to be within 6 feet of you. And I was like, yeah, let's all put microphones in our faces. And then I started like my buddy Carlton, who, you know, is a great dude. And he and I have gotten a lot closer since we started doing this podcast. But that's actually who booked me for the host weekend with Adam Ferrara, because he's actually hired on at that club as their events coordinator. So he's in charge of booking all the MCs and stuff. But he and I do this podcast. That's just a like video only podcast called Help Wanted. And that was like a thing where like I was a guest on that, and the other host was another ginger. And like he hit me up because like he's also a ginger. When that dude quit, he was like, hey man, do you want to like, just to keep the ginger thing going, do you want to fill in? You know, like, do you want to feel it out, fill in, and like see if you like it? And then maybe we'll, you know, you can stay and we'll just keep doing episodes. And I was just like, dude, I'll just do it. Like, whatever, man, it's content. Like, I'm cool with it. And then me and I
Lucky
have
to be
so
a
many.
ginger.
I
Sorry.
have so many different like I'm like I have so many podcasts. I don't know why. Uh, but no, me and Rashid Wesley, who's another comic that I met through doing Zoom stuff,
Hmm.
started doing this thing called Rot Your Brain podcast, which it's like me and him just talking about nerd shit. So it's like it's not that one's like not even comedy related really in the grand scheme of things. It's just me and him talking about comic books. And
Although
that's
it can
literally
be.
like
He
we
was
talk about
more.
comic books for like an hour and like it was just something different. And I'm like, you know what? Even if you don't like comedy, like that's just a cool podcast to like listen to nerdy shit.
Well, like, yeah, and I have appreciated that, like, because I have like a set on like D&D stuff. I do that. I feel like it's pretty
Hell yeah.
nerdy, and like if it doesn't hit, like there's still like some stuff that people can relate to, but like overall, like when like there's an actual audience of like people who play D&D, it's also like hugely to my benefit, and I feel like just having
Yeah.
an outlet for like the nerdy stuff is something that I've
Well,
benefited from.
there's a show that I got booked on at the Funny Bone here before COVID happened. It's like a couple buddies of mine do the show. It's called Geeks Night of Comedy, and it's just they're just two nerds, and they go up and they just do like geeky jokes about nerdy shit, and then they book other comics to go on, and like they booked me, and they were like, you don't have to do like nerd jokes. You could just go up and do your normal stuff. But their crowd, it's like I did a show. It was like 100 just straight up nerds, and I was like, man, I was just so excited because I was like, man, no matter what, like even if I bomb or say something so bad that you guys hate me afterwards, it's like I could still take you. Like I could beat you all up. I was like, I'm okay with it.
Also, I feel like it's like, no, you don't have to do nerdy jokes if you don't want to. Like, for me, it would be like, no, that's fine. Like,
Oh
I'm
yeah,
happy
dude.
to
They
do
like raffled off. They like raffled off a bunch of like nerdy like video game stuff and like all kind of shit, dude. I was like, damn, I wish I would have entered the raffle. But no, like, yeah, man, you can find like that's the cool thing with comedy is like if there's a theme, you could either make it up or you can find someone that's booking a show for that and just get on it. Like that's the coolest part.
Yeah, and that's something that's been really fun through like this environment is that like the virtual environment lends itself so much to like if you are not seeing the content that you want to see, you just make it rather than like having to subject yourself to whatever's already out there. But that being said, I also want to make sure, because we always start and end with the same question for every guest, and because of our time, I want to make sure that I ask you what's up next for you, both stuff that's coming up soon, maybe that you want to plug and that we can check you out on, as well as like what your long-term goals are in respect to your comedy career. Because we have some people who are on this show who are just like, you know, it's just a hobby, or like people who are like gunning for it, like full throttle, like I'm next, Bill Burr.
Bill Marlboro. I'm
Bill
the cigarette
or Bill
king
Burr.
of Wisconsin. Bill Marlboro. I'm taking down those camels. No, God damn it! You made me forget the question, Tom.
What's up next for you? What's your future hold with comedy?
So, I want to. So I've been working on like building out like a longer set, and the goal is within the next question mark. I don't know how long. I want to run this 30-minute set as much as possible, and then record it and put it on YouTube and put it out on like Spotify and stuff like that, just so that I've got, I guess, technically an album out of sorts, just to say that I have, just to say that I have one. And just put like the jokes that I really enjoy, like the strongest stuff. The goal is ideally to have it as like a themed album. The name that I have for it tentatively is Life in the Drive-Thru, and I'm just gonna do as much of the like. I want to do a bunch of the stepdad stuff because it's easy to like go into and get people on board, and then do the McDonald's stuff, and then the last 10 minutes is the stuff that I'm trying to figure out is either going to be like stuff about my parents and my family and stuff like that, or just like the weird, goofy, like random, like weird sex jokes or whatever nonsensical shit that I have that I think is like really strong, but really goofy. So there's that. Aside from that, I mean, I really just want to like build out my podcast, and I want to take as much time as I can to really grow like my social media following. Like, I got stickers made, and I actually like what's really cool is when I was at the shows this weekend, I actually had people ask to take pictures with me after the show. It was really wild.
Sorry.
Yeah, like they got stickers and they were like, "Hey, can we take a picture with you?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine." I had some buddies come out that I hadn't seen in years. They came. I got them into the show. It was my buddy's birthday. Another friend of ours, his mom just passed away last week. So like I had them come out and like got them into the show, got them a table, and it was like 9 of their friends. It was like 9 people came to see me. And like my buddies like both took pictures with me after the show and stuff, so it was really cool. But yeah, no, I want to build as much as I can. Other than that, as far as like what I've got coming up, I'll be hosting. So Sandman Comedy Club is the club that just opened up in Richmond. I will be hosting there again next month. I'll be hosting for Shane Gillis there June 17th through the 19th, and I'm really excited for it just because it's another like really good opportunity to work with somebody that is like really out here just fucking hitting it. Like that dude's doing a bunch. Like he's got sketches out that are hilarious, and he's got a lot going on. So I'm excited for what's coming up. So
Yeah, and Nick is also definitely going to book me too for some of that stuff. Real quick, just because we can like of course, continue to keep chatting, but I just really quickly, for everybody watching at home, do a little outro as far as, like, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Nick, for being such a great guest and hanging out with us. You can find him on Instagram at, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's Nick Deez Comedy, correct?
Yes.
So that's Deez, Deez. So Nick Deez Comedy on Instagram. And thank you, Roz, for being such a great co-host as always. And big thanks to you, our audience, for watching the program. If you enjoyed the stream, please consider making a donation or following us on social media. That's at District_Comedy on most of the platforms. And then at District Comedy for Facebook. I'm sorry, Nick is doing some stuff in the camera. I'm like getting distracted. But yeah, you can find the links to all that in the episode description. Tune in next week as we interview comedian. It's going to be Michael Furr. That's who it is.
I'm very excited.
Definitely tune in for that. It's going to be a good time. And thanks so much. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.
But